For those of you that don't know us, my name is Sam and I am from Prospel. We are putting on today's event and we run job boards like Grad Australia, which hopefully you're all quite familiar with. Before I go any further, I would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I'd also like to pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's lovely speakers for our panel here today. I'm going to slowly start to add you all onto the panel. Hello, Sarah from Teach for Australia. Hello, Bryden as well. We've got Kate and Jake. Welcome, welcome, everyone.
Thanks, Sam.
Hello.
Hello. Now, let's, I reckon we'll start with a bit of an introductional round, if that's all right. I might start firstly with, I'm going to pick on first. I might start with Kate. But maybe if you give us a quick introduction to yourself and to PM&C.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us today. So as Sam mentioned, my name's Kate. I am the Assistant Director of the graduate team here at Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet, or that is quite a mouthful. So PM&C is the way we like to do it. What can I tell you? I've been in my role for 4 years. I absolutely love it. I love the graduate space. I'm really passionate about recruiting, onboarding, developing, seeing grads through to completion of the whole program. I absolutely love it. PM&C is it's a great organisation, and that's probably maybe testament to my 4 years there. We sort of work on big picture policy. We're the central agency within the APS, so we shadow a lot of departments when it comes to sort of policy making, which means in terms of the graduate program, real breadth of experience to work on, which is why I think it's a great also starting point for your career. So there's that breadth of work and amazing culture. We've got great culture, we've got great supervisors and a lot of support. So yeah, that's probably, is that enough of an intro, Sam? Because I am someone who could talk for forever. So just, you just cut me off whenever you need.
That sounds good, I reckon. Let's don't worry. I'll come back to you with lots of questions, so don't worry about that. Let's stick with federal government, I reckon. Bryden, I might throw to you to introduce yourself and Services Australia.
Sure thing. Yeah, so Bryden here from Services Australia, as you've heard. So I'm sure most of you will know of Services Australia and may even be using our services, but basically pretty much every Australian in their lifetime will interact with us at some point, whether that's through, Centrelink, Medicare, aged care, or even, student allowance. My role, I was a STEM. That's how I joined Services Australia back in 2018. Graduated from that after the first year and started off in the UX team. So we were looking at, improving experiences for both customers and for staff. Moved out of that team and onto a project once COVID happened called Platform Remediation, which started off as making sure that Centrelink was stable while everyone was mass claiming, and has now moved on to a more of a monitoring, analysis and development fixes to ensure that the Centrelink backend ecosystem works well, because we have a combination of legacy and modern systems. So that's me. I've always had a passion for innovation and learning. I've had the opportunity already through Services Australia to have a cadet and some capstone students as well already. So yeah, all this kind of stuff is right up my alley.
Awesome. Thanks, Bryden, for the introduction there. Change up a bit. Sarah, tell us a little bit about Teach for Australia and yourself.
My name is Sarah and I am the Senior Victorian Recruitment Advocacy Manager based in Melbourne for Teach for Australia, and I'm in my 3rd year within the organisation and the recruitment team. Teach for Australia, we are a not-for-profit organisation, part of a global network called the Teach for All network. So we have over 52 countries that are all existing to tackle educational inequity, and to do that we recruit future leaders into classrooms in low socioeconomic communities. A little bit about my background. I have had a bit of a random career pathway into this role. I actually have a history in hospitality and spent the last decade climbing my way up the hotel ladder before relocating over to London, and I had the opportunity to work for Teach First, which is our UK partner. over there. And since coming back to Melbourne, I've been able to transition to Teach for Australia. And my favourite part about this role in recruitment is just speaking to as many people as I can and hearing all the different stories and journeys that people have been on to get to where they are. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sarah. Jake, bring us home.
No problems. Thanks, Sam. Yulma, everyone, which is Ngunnawal for hello. Sam, I'm coming to you from Ngunnawal country this afternoon, so I'd also like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and future. And it's been a magical opportunity to, although we have spent a period of lockdown recently, like everyone else across Australia, it's been good to get back out and enjoy, get back into the building with everyone as well, and to enjoy the great Ngunnawal country. We've had a lot of opportunity from working from home to be able to observe the country. It's been really great to watch the flora and fauna change and to consider how the old people lived on the country for so long. So I'm representing the ACT government here, a little bit different from our federal colleagues, is that our jurisdiction looks after about 400,000 people in the Australian Capital Territory. We've got a real diversity of roles, which I'm sure that we'll talk about a bit later on. A little bit about myself is that I entered my career through an ICT traineeship. It was actually an IT traineeship. They didn't have the C back then. And the breadth of work that this organisation has afforded me has let me experience a number of areas, including IT, cabinet office, departmental liaison officer roles, work in industrial relations, and recently whole of government programs, which is how I found my way into the grad program, which is really, really interesting. I really love the ideas of looking at our future leaders and attracting talent to fill the needs of our organisation to provide the best services to the community. Thanks, Sam.
Perfect. Thanks, Jacob. I might stick with you actually, because for our first question, and for our students, before I jump into that, though, for our students are listening in today, if you've got any questions yourself, make sure to chuck them into the Q&A component. We'll make sure to try and get to them. I'm sure we'll have plenty coming through though, so do bear with us. But for my first question, other than introductions, Jacob, can you maybe give us the most important piece of advice you'd like to give students aspiring to work both within this ACT government and maybe just within the public service more broadly?
Yeah, sure, Sam. You caught me off a little bit there because that wasn't the first question, so nice work on keeping me on my toes. So we're a values-based organisation, and so that means that we're really looking for people that align with our signature values and behaviours. It's expected of all of our employees across every piece of work that we do. Now, those values that I was talking about are respect, integrity, collaboration, and innovation. So, although we do, look for students' qualifications and skills, of course, we're also really interested in your values and your behaviours as well, how you demonstrate those values that I talked about before, because we know that that's the culture that we want to build in our organisation. So it's really important to think about how you're going to demonstrate those important values and behaviours, and also how you're going to align those with our capabilities, which are outlined in our capabilities framework as well.
Perfect. Great advice, Jacob. Kate, same question. Most important piece of advice you'd give to students who want to work obviously within PM&C, but public service more broadly as well, particularly the federal government?
Yeah, great one. I think my best piece of advice would be to know your worth and show that and bring it, especially at PM&C. It's a lot about teamwork and collaboration, and it's about bringing and sharing your own perspective and knowing what that worth is, and being willing to share that perspective. Definitely for us here at PM&C, what you studied, and that skill that you bring is really important. It's going to help, get you a foot in the door. But what's most important to us is who you are, knowing your worth, and definitely how you treat and respect other people. So that would probably be, I think, my piece of advice.
Thanks, Kate. Let's stick with government again. Bryden, most important pieces of advice students looking to work in Service Australia and government more broadly.
So mine's a bit more generic. So obviously Service Australia is like a huge place. We got many different areas, but the most important advice I've got for people, and one that's helped me a lot, is when you get a position, utilize the fact that you are new, and whatever role you're in, ask as many questions as you want, because sure, you might be like the dumb grad or whatever, but use that as your barrier, because you can ask whatever question you want and no one's going to like say anything against you because you're the new person. It's expected. And what I found is, even if you think it's the most painfully obvious thing, you're sitting in a room full of technical people and they're all discussing something, and you see something and you go, they must have surely thought of that. Ask the question, because sometimes they might go, oh yes, we considered this months ago and here's why. You've learned something, yay. But also you might actually think of something different, which is the entire reason you've been brought in, as a fresh face, fresh ideas, and a fresh perspective. You might stumble upon that little bit of gold that they were looking for. So don't be afraid to ever ask questions, and there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Great advice. Thanks, Bryden. Sarah, same question, but for students aspiring to work in within teaching, what's some advice you'd give them?
Yeah, perfect. Actually quite similar to Jacob in the sense of, first and foremost, aligning your values. So what you value and then what the organisation's values are, and are they aligning, just comes across so much more passionately in our candidates that come through, especially from our graduates. But I think as well, having a passion and a hunger for wanting to be a part of a change and be a part of a community. And then second to that, like Kate said, knowing your worth, but also I think knowing your limits and having your self-care impact. Teach for Australia is an organisation that self-care and mental health is really important to us. So knowing those as well will absolutely kind of help within the sector at the same time.
Awesome. Question about applications. And again, I might stick with Sarah, with yourself, recruitment advisor. Tell us a little bit, a tip for students who are starting out that application process right now. What is it? I think you've sort of referenced it a little bit, but what is it you really look for in a candidate when they're applying?
Yeah, so there's two things. So the technical thing and what we're assessing against at Teach for Australia, we have 8 key competencies that we are looking for consistent demonstration across our entire process. And some of those include your commitment to our vision and mission, your resilience, your communication skills. But on the back end of that, we're also we want to talk to you. We want you to get in on the conversation with us. Come along to our events. Bring along your support network, like your partner or parents or friend or anything like that, to kind of bring the support network along with the journey and talk to as many people as you can within the organisation. Those people, they carry themselves through the selection process and they're really aware of TFA and we're aware of them. So that definitely helps progress through as well.
Perfect. Jacob, same question. In terms of your ideal candidate, can you sort of point to anything that students can do to progress to the next round in your recruitment process?
Yeah, Sam, it leads back to the values and behaviours that I was talking about before. We do ask at the application stage, we do ask students to provide a 500-word response to a question that we've posed, and we're really looking for that demonstration of how you would go about delivering your work. How you present those behaviours as you go about undertaking your role, both through the graduate program, but longer term as well. And there's a lot of, people have got a lot of experience where they've already demonstrated those important values and behaviours in our life through doing our schoolwork, through participating at university, maybe through volunteering or doing extracurricular work. It's all really important because it supports the demonstration that that you can, you can live those values that are really important to us. Of course, we are, really looking for a broad range of people with broad range of qualifications as well. But like I said, and I keep on going back to it, it's those values and behaviours, because we look to check those or assess against those throughout our recruitment process a number of times, so that we can validate our recruitment outcomes. So that's the biggest piece of advice that I'd give there. That 500-word response that I was talking about, although that's at the application stage, that will also be assessed by a panel at the virtual assessment centre stage. So it is relevant from start all the way through to the last assessment stage, which is that virtual assessment centre.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacob. So in short, particularly that last part really resonated with me. It's like that every piece of that application process is continually important, right? Like if it's all the way through. So take care in each component of that.
Take care, yeah. It's where you want to think deep, and really put the effort in to demonstrating that that skill that you've got, that quality that you've got.
I've got a bit of a curveball for you, Kate. I've heard from a couple of grads sort of separately more recently that sometimes the grad recruitment process can be a little bit daunting because of its length and how impersonal it is. Could you comment on any tips you'd give for grads to keep themselves motivated through the process, or anything PM&C does to help students in that journey?
Yeah. Okay. Great question, Sam. So look, we are absolutely aware that these kinds of application processes, they can be long, they can be lengthy, they probably cause anxiety. We are aware that you have assignments, extracurricular, potentially part-time jobs, family commitments. Like we basically, what I'm saying is we're trying to aware that everybody at the moment has a lot on their plate. In terms of PM&C, we like to, I guess, think that we've sort of done the best that we can throughout the process to make it as comfortable as possible for you. Our actual application form is really simplified for that reason. It's a resume, a transcript, some personal details, and a really short blurb about why the stream that you've picked is the one that you want to pick in, is the one that you want to work in, and we don't assess that. We use that if you are offered a job in the graduate program. We then, probably like many other departments and companies, we have an online assessment piece, which is that next stage. And for PM&C, we actually offer candidates the opportunity to do that entire suite of assessments. Other departments and companies might start with, say, a cognitive ability and have a cutoff there and then progress to the next stage. We actually like to give people the opportunity to participate in all of our online assessments, because what's really important for us is looking at a person's, I guess, skills and abilities, motivations and interests holistically. So for us, it's not about having cognitive ability as a forefront and moving forward. It's about having essentially a broad range of cognitive ability, emotional intelligence, motivation, and skills to work at PM&C. So you get the opportunity to do all of those. Now, while that means there might be, say, 4 assessments to do within that portal, you'll have 4 to 5 weeks to do it all. My recommendation, do not leave it to the last minute. You can do them in absolutely any order that you want. So you can pick what you would find the most comfortable. For some people, interviewing is a much more, I guess, easier process than, say, an online test. And for other people, it might be the opposite. So you've got that opportunity to do it in any order that you want, which we hope for you eases you into that process. We also have a lot of I guess, short little videos along the way to help you feel comfortable. So you've seen me here today, you'll see me on those online portals again. Hopefully the objective is to make you feel comfortable. And that's it. So you do that one set of assessments. For us, we look at that holistically. That's super, super important to us. And then you're invited to assessment centre. And I would probably, the one tip I would have for you, I'd have to say, when we look at our grads and when we sort of analyse and evaluate the program at the end of each year, the grads that we find have done the best in the program, when we look back at our assessments, this is a little bit of an insider tip, are the ones who do the best in that sort of group activity group scenario. So teamwork, collaboration, taking the time to listen to us and learn from that. That's like a bit of a key to be a successful grad at PM&C. So hope that helps.
Thanks, Kate. Brian, similar-ish question, but just in regards to students, like, is there any particular skills or anything like that, or anything you can think of that students can use and showcase to help them progress to the next round at Services Australia?
So the good thing about us is that we take an absolutely huge variety of people. So we've got STEMs, we've got cadets, we've got grads. So you can have a wide range of skills. But what we really want is we want people who are going to uphold the values which we have, which is to deliver simple, helpful, respectful, and transparent experiences for our customers. So beyond that, what I found is going to do you the best is if you show a passion for those values, a passion for wanting to help sort of like the broader community and society as a whole, but then also a passion for innovation, that ability to speak up, suggest a new idea, analyze what's going on, and suggest a new pathway that we could take. And doing that either through written applications, or for myself, when I joined, I did a video interview, which was just a question and response kind of thing. It was pre-recorded, and just showing that you have an interest in wanting to help Australia, essentially. And everyone in it, because we deal with a lot of people who are extremely vulnerable, so you have to have that empathy and that passion to want to empower them and improve their life. And through innovation and all that kind of stuff, it really helps if you show that in your application.
Awesome. I'd stick with you, Brian, actually, in terms of, because I got a couple of questions coming in from the chat just about eligibility more broadly, because you mentioned that you take on a wide variety of degrees and disciplines, but if you just discuss, any other eligibility criteria that students should be aware of, except master's students, international students, assume you don't. So can you give us a...
I don't believe we take international students, because I think you're required to hold citizenship or permanent residency. So, but I'd have to get back to you on that one, the specifics. Definitely, we accept masters. I joined as a master's student. I also joined with other STEMs in the same year as me who only have bachelors. So we don't discriminate against the type of degree you have. What we're looking for is the different thoughts. So a few of the examples of my peers, we had people who studied as teachers in geology. We had people who studied and have PhDs. We have people who studied IT. I did UX myself. I got into a UX role. But that was kind of one of the stranger ones, actually. Everyone was given an opportunity, and it didn't matter sort of your background. That was STEM, which is obviously science, tech, engineering, maths. But then we've also got cadets who are studying design, because we do a lot of design work in terms of our user experience. So I would say there's such a massive variety and opportunity there that you can get in with pretty much any sort of degree, I would say.
Perfect. Jacob, same question. Eligibility for the ACT Gov programs, is there any big factors we should be aware of? Degrees, citizenship or PR requirements, anything you can flag for us?
It's similar in regards to the permanent residency or citizenship. However, if that's a matter that's can be sorted by December this year, we would still accept eligible graduates for the 2023 program, and that's the same for every year. So we'll take it up to as close as we can for arrangements to be made, noting that it is a long process. But because graduates move into a permanent role after the graduate program with us, that permanent residency or citizenship is required. But otherwise, we are trying to remove as many barriers as we can. We still do ask for a GPA or a WAM score. However, we're realising that's less and less important because it's not about the grade or the overall score. It's about completing that degree. That's really important. And we're trying to be broad with the kind of qualifications that we're seeking. So rather than being really, really specific, we like to be broad because then that allows us to fit to the needs of our organisation. The diversity of degrees that our applicants produce really fits a number of niche streams that we're looking, but otherwise we're looking for any and all graduates, because we think that we can fit a lot of relevant qualifications across our business unit. And we've been getting a lot of joy from our business units about thinking outside of the box as well, about the kind of qualifications that they need in their areas. They're the kind of main things, Sam.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Jacob. Kate, see yourself off mute, so I'll pick on you. Then I'll go to Sarah. Eligibility, I'm assuming similar to Service Australia around Australian citizenship, but could you clarify other eligibility criteria?
100% I can. So yes, Australian citizenship, but Australian citizenship by June 30 this year. So if you're going through the process for citizenship, I would still 100% encourage you to apply. Other eligibility, minimum 3-year undergraduate degree completed within the last 8 years. So a nice sort of open field there. So if you've done that in the last 8 years, please also apply. We'd love to hear from you. It's not just for recent graduates, which I think there can be a bit of a stigma around graduate programs sometimes. So please. And just obviously being able to obtain and maintain a security clearance, which is part of that needing to be a citizenship for.
Yeah. And master's students obviously to take on, I think you've even said
just
career
leaders, as long as it's anything you want, as long as like your degree is an equivalent to a minimum 3-year undergraduate degree that was done within the last 8 years. So even if you completed, say, a bachelor degree in 2018 and you've then gone on to do another like master's certificate, anything on top of that, absolutely.
Perfect. Sarah, and yourself, can you tell us a little bit about the eligibility for the TFA program?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the same as the others. So we do require all of our candidates to either have permanent residency or citizenship before they apply to the program, which is based on our funding and impact model. And then the only other form of eligibility required is they need to have a bachelor's degree at a minimum in any discipline other than teaching to be graduated by the end of the year that they're applying in. So we recruit our candidates a year in advance. So those that are applying for next year's cohort would need to be finished studying by the end of this year.
And just on the TFA program as well, can you just give a context from memory? The students come out of the program with an extra qualification. Am I correct?
That's correct. So the leadership development program, it's a non-traditional pathway into the classroom. So over 2 years, you can work in one of our schools serving a low socioeconomic community while studying your Masters of Teaching. So it gives you, it's an employment-based pathway. So it gives you the opportunity to work, study, and then also earn a salary at the same time, instead of over that traditional pathway, depending on what's more suited to you. At the end, they come out with the Masters of Teaching.
Fantastic. And so, again, just sorry, sticking with you, Sarah, I'm picking on you a little bit, but will they be working in TFA or somewhere else?
They will be working in a school, in a community. Yeah. So we work in Victoria, Western Australia, the Northern Territory, Tasmania, and South Australia. So successful candidates could be placed in any one of those states or territories. They have the ability to chat to us about preferences and things like that. But they will be a classroom teacher in one of those schools for the 2 years. Due to the nature of the program, there is absolutely support provided. We have 3 mentors that all of our associates get in the form of in-school academic through the university and a teaching and leadership advisor who is an employer from Teach for Australia.
Fantastic. A question again for everyone. I think I've given everyone most questions, so I'll stick with that. I got a great question from Simon about specifically in regards to the experience of being an African Australian student and being overlooked during application processes. So I guess my question is one for this community, but also more broadly, and I'm not sure who I'll pick on first, but maybe if you could each tell us a little bit about what support you offer for students from diverse backgrounds, cultural linguistically diverse communities, disability, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander communities, and other groups that I haven't mentioned, and potentially clarify whether that would be something that maybe Simon would experience throughout your process. Let's start with Jacob first, I think. Can you tell us about diversity at ACT government, potentially?
Yep, absolutely, Sam. So embedded under our values and behaviours framework is what we call the RED framework, Respect, Equity and Diversity framework, which is really important to us. And essentially, what we know is in the ACT is that we've got a very, very diverse community. And so we do want our workforce to mirror our community. So diversity is really, really important to us. There is a couple of measures that we make for some of our inclusions candidates at the application stage. For instance, people with disability and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, where we might extend the limit of the degree from 3 years out to 5 years. But I'm also, as an Aboriginal person myself, really looking at the barriers that are in place for graduates coming into the program, and really looking to make more cultural safety and more of a safe environment to go through what sometimes is a pretty hard process, the recruitment process, to get into the organisation. There's a lot of things right that we're doing in the organisation to make our workplaces safe and diverse. So that's really exciting, and it's really exciting to be part of it. But one thing that we're going to be testing is to keep our engagement with our inclusions groups throughout this process that we're about to run. So that's really giving a clear picture of what's coming up next, and to have real authentic engagement to support people through those processes. I'm also looking at embedding a cultural program in the graduate program, whereby we're going to embed it in our L&D program and go and visit country a few times, go out with traditional custodians onto country as a cohort. It's part of networking and creating networks and circles of safety within the graduate cohorts as well, and working with alumni also. All of that linked with our Respect, Equity and Diversity framework that we've got in play. And I'd encourage anyone who's interested in that to go to Dr. Google and put in RED framework, and you should go straight to our RED framework page, which will give an idea of some of the work that we're undertaking in the organisation. But like I said, the Chief Ministers presented a new vision. One of the key parts of that vision is that we have a culture of inclusion, and that he wants a diverse public service. And that way we know that the diversity of our public service will better meet the needs of our community because we'll have the diversity in the organisation.
Kate, similar question. For students from backgrounds, like particularly our African Australian community, for the question, is there any way that they, what sort of supports on offer from PM&C and particularly through the recruitment process?
Yeah, totally. So probably similar to what Jacob said in terms of the workforce, like PM&C, if you look at our website, it says we're here to shape the lives of all the Australian people. So we're really conscious that all of the Australian people, huge multicultural, population we have here in Australia. And it's really important for us that our workforce reflects the diversity of Australia. So that's just a little bit of like context. And then in terms of support, absolutely. Through the application process. So I think one thing that's really, really good to note, because it can probably be a bit miscommunicated sometimes, is when we talk about reasonable adjustments, you don't have to be somebody that lives with disability to apply for or ask for a reasonable adjustment in the recruitment process. So at any point in the recruitment process, if you are someone from, a diverse background or someone who just simply needs a little bit more support, you can absolutely request that and talk to us. It's myself and my team. We look after the grad program from end to end. So it's never going to be somebody from a different team. If you call and ask to speak to myself, for example, it's going to be me supporting you from the recruitment process through to the end, which I think is a really, really nice offering for PM&C, because we know often that people who might need support, they can be a bit hesitant to ask for support because they're never quite sure what people might do with that information. Whereas with myself and my team, it is us from the beginning to the end. So you have that sort of just ongoing touch point with a single person to support you throughout. So I think that's really key. Secondly, as well, we ensure that our panel, our panel of assessors throughout the process also reflects diversity of our workforce, of the population, and for the cohort that we are wanting to recruit. So we always bring in that perspective there as well. And then, of course, we have really, really active diversity networks at PM&C. I mean, for example, our CALD network, we just celebrated Harmony Day a couple of weeks ago, and there was some beautiful face-to-face and online events. And we just, we're constantly celebrating the different cultures that we have and sharing that throughout the department.
Perfect. And just to clarify a question that came in, PM&C is Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet.
Yeah.
So it's a bit issue with names getting blacked out. Thanks, Kate.
Okay.
I was conscious of time. I've actually got only a few little minutes left. There are a couple more questions I do want to get through. Hopefully that helps, Simon. And I'm assuming Sarah and Bryden would you agree? Similar answers, a lot of support.
Very similar.
Yeah.
So much support, yeah.
Brian, I might ask you a quick question, then I'll go to Sarah next as well. Brian, can you tell us a little bit about a typical day in the life of working at Services Australia, particularly any misconceptions students, anything exciting that students might not have considered?
Again, I know I keep saying it, but we have such a diverse range of roles that even just within the people that I work with, like the STEMs are joined with me, we did different things. But what the organization is really good at doing is supporting you in the role that you're placed in. So for me, a typical day is I'm in a lot of meetings, talking with very technical people, very, very smart people with 30, sometimes even 40 years of experience in a particular field. And in an open dialogue with them, discussing new ideas and solutions to problems that we've seen popping up and everything. But honestly, for me, no 2 days are the same. Sure, you rock up at 9 and go home at 5, but how that day works and whether or not you're presenting to higher up managers, or you're doing something like this today, or you're just simply putting together a PowerPoint to illustrate your ideas. I think what you need to be able to do if you're going to thrive here is you're going to need to be able to be adaptable and be willing to throw yourself into the roles that you are given, because we try and match you up with something that's going to be similar to what you're interested in and something that we think you can be passionate about. But your team might be very different if you're working in aged care to someone who's working for Centrelink, or if you're working in Department of Veterans Affairs. There's so many areas that there'll be so many different opportunities. And then I guess following that, you can always move around as well. There's a whole lot of options to move. If you don't like what you're doing that day, you could potentially pick a different team, or rotate out, or do a temporary placement for higher duties with the separate team. So unfortunately, no 2 days are going to be the same, but I think a lot of people like myself like that, the variety and the breadth and width of experience you get through this huge organization.
A similar question for you, Sarah. What's a typical day in life of the grads who end up working as a teacher out in communities, and particularly what does TFA do to support those grads in their day to day?
Yeah, it's a loaded question. I always like to say, how long is a piece of string? So our associates every day is very, very different for them. They're dealing with humans, and like Bryden just said, adaptability and resilience. Resilience is one of our competencies that we look for a reason. Our associates are the classroom teacher from day one, so they will be teaching lessons that relate to their studies. They will be having staff meetings. They will be getting to know their classes as well. There's a lot of relationship building that goes on in the first couple of months in this role. And then they've also got their master's study that they need to do at the same time. And then they've also got their own personal commitments. So we have associates who start the program with partner or family or pets or anything like that. So there's a lot of commitments, and the 2 years of the program is quite a challenge. So every day is very, very different for them. But I think the key thing is that adaptability and being able to adjust and build up some resilience over the 2 years.
Perfect. Thanks, Sarah. Now I'm conscious we've only got a very short, like about 60 seconds or so remaining. So, and then we're up to our next presentation from the ATO. And Sarah, I believe you're actually speaking not long after that again as well. So I'm sure there might be some more questions that come your way. But this is a question for everyone, and we'll keep it as quick as possible. In one sentence, why should students apply for your organisation or for your leadership development program? And I'll start with you, Sarah, since you just went.
Oh, okay, one sentence. It's one sentence.
Yeah, one sentence.
So essentially, if you are someone who is interested in making impact from day one, you want to be a part of a local, national and international community, and you're driven by the same vision and mission, and you love the idea of a challenge, then apply for Teach for Australia.
Perfect. Jacob, why, one sentence, why should students apply for the ACT government?
Sam, we've got a really competitive starting salary, an ongoing salary, and a really competitive employment framework that offers flexibility and mobility. Not only that, the environment that we work in and the place that we live in has world-class standards. We're really well connected. We've got beautiful natural environment. We've got a really vibrant events calendar, healthy and active, world-class educational institutions, and a plethora of other really attractive work-life balance frameworks that are really important to us and to the organisation, because we know that's what's important to people, especially these days after we're coming out of COVID.
Perfect. Thanks, Jacob. I can do that was probably 2 or 3 sentences, but that's okay. Bryden, one sentence. Why should students apply for Services Australia?
So Services Australia is one of the biggest and most varied organisations that we have here in Australia, and the opportunities you're going to have to help people and also for yourself have a very varied and exciting career. It can't be understated.
And Kate, last but not least, one sentence, why should students apply for PM&C?
Because we are essential, the central government agency, the breadth of experience that you will get is like no other. And if you are someone who is open-minded, has a thirst for knowledge and wants to, I guess, make an impact on big picture policy, then you should absolutely consider PM&C as the place for you. Fantastic.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time this morning, or this afternoon, sorry. It's been a great session. And for those of you, for Kate and Jacob who are jumping off, could say thanks very much. Sarah and Brighton team at the Services Australia will also be talking a bit later on as well. So if you had some questions for those particularly, make sure you stick on because we've still got a few more to go. But yeah, thanks to everyone.